said, my name is Brad Balzer. I took over this position July of last year. So far, the classes I've taken was the core class, building inspection for residential and commercial, advanced official, maintenance inspection, permit technician, plan review residential, elevator inspection, Virginia existing building code, mechanical and fuel gas inspection for residential, and then I have 7 more classes starting in September. Basically, the end goal of all this is to bring all the services back to the town, so the county doesn't only have to cover the permits, the plan reviews, and the inspections. Under the Virginia Department of Housing and Community Development, they teach us the Virginia way, which is you seek compliance over punitive punishment. So the end goal is for everybody basically to finish. If there's a problem on the property, you want the property to be back into compliance instead of just handing out fines, taking them to court, and on that end of it. So far, as far as the bad buildings we were speaking of, I went through the town and found over 100 properties that are empty. That includes commercial and residential. I've sent out this year 52 letters for violations on grass and outdoor storage. 27 which the homes, the owners are out of town or deceased. So it shows that at least 7 people that are in town aren't taking care of their property. But out of the over 100 buildings that I have come across that are empty, most of them are being taken care of by someone, family member, or they're paying somebody locally to maintain the property. Right now there's 34 houses total on the no list, and Public Works has been backed up on other issues in the town, so they haven't been able to get to the list to keep them cut, which I get complaints about that daily. Just trying to get the yards maintained with this type of weather we've been having. It's hard for homeowners as well as Public Works maintaining those yards. That's about all I have really to say. Anybody have any questions?
Did you get the inmate work crew to help you out in that situation with catching up with the yards?
I'm sure I can reach out to the county.
I mean, just a suggestion.
That's a good suggestion. We have reached out about possibly getting them to help paint lines. Now, if they have time to actually help with the yards, it might be something worth looking into.
I have a question. A neighbor or a person who owns houses, say he's your buddy, and I'm assuming that's the reason why his house are in high violation on Church Street. The shrubs are way tall, and the one house in particular, a few years ago, I cut it way back, and now it's growing over the sidewalk again, but it doesn't seem to register that you get the city workers like they did once before and cut it off the sidewalk. And the house next to it, they started fixing it, but the grass is 4 feet high. Right. I mean, the grass isn't supposed to be more than a foot high.
I know which house you're speaking. I sent them a letter, and that house is actually on the mow list.
Right, but somebody, whatever Public Works isn't doing, according to the ringleader, Chuck is the head of Public Works now. So he's not only our town manager, but he's the Public Works director.
Let me clarify that. Let me clarify. The truth of that matter is, Amanda is the day-to-day operations manager in the Public Works Department. I am the administrative side of the management of the Public Works Department.
You're getting an extra $12,000 a year to be the manager, are you not?
I am getting an extra stipend to take on extra responsibility.
Which
you
takes
have a question.
No, I got you, but it takes away from you being a town manager. You can't be a ringleader what are we going to do to address these frequent violations on Church Street all the time? And much less, I wanted to know this plate, is that working for houses that people are living in that should be condemned too, that have not been addressed?
The bad inventory program has addressed all houses, whether they're occupied or not. We actually ran into some homeowners that the day we did the inventory, they were ecstatic that we were doing the inventory. They even asked us to make sure we included their properties. So yes, we are looking at houses that are both inhabited and vacant. I think Brad has answered the question about the houses and shrubs on Church Street, that he is familiar with the property, he has addressed the property, and I know that there has been discussion that the owner of the property has committed to you that they're gonna cut the shrubbery off of the sidewalk. Is that correct?
For the one house, yes.
Okay.
The other
But,
one,
but when? Because I spoke with that person, and he said he was his buddy. So it makes me think there's an inside deal.
Okay, enough of that.
there's
Well,
no
it's
inside
true.
deal. I know who you're speaking of. And I've dealt with him because he has several homes in the property. There are several properties in the area. I can be your friend, but I can also do what I need to do.
Well, when is it gonna be addressed? That's all I'm,
It has
because
been
when I cut it back, the shrubs were way low. Now they're overgrown again, and it, you know, had they maintained it, it wouldn't have gone back on the sidewalk.
Well, it's actually up to the owner who's living in the house to cut the shrubs.
Brad, could you talk into the microphone?
Yes, sorry.
I'm sorry.
Okay. It's actually up to the owner, or who's living in the house to take care of the problem. But I spoke with the owner, because every time I go to knock on the door, I can't get nobody to come to the door. And he advised me the gentleman's elderly, so he was gonna have someone he knows cut the bushes. Now, I
Well,
was
I'd
on
offer
vacation.
to do it, because I have commercial equipment, and I could get it done in no time flat. Just like I did way back when, Mr. Brinkley owned it, watched me, had me help cut it down, and then tried to turn around and get me for damaging his shrubs, which obviously I didn't damage, because they're right back where they were.
Right. But if you, I'll be back to work on Monday morning if you wanna speak about it. Okay. Any other questions?
Is there a ordinance about the vines growing up over on homes and
Vines?
houses and stuff?
Under the property maintenance code, there are codes as far as vegetation growing up on the houses because it can cause damage behind siding, behind gutters, it can get in the roof, and cause problems in that aspect. But I've planned on taking my property maintenance certification within the upcoming weeks, where I can do more under that code. Because right now, I don't have any certifications as of yet, because I'm still taking classes.
Because we have several homes in Clifton Forge that could look at as topiaries. I mean, there could be a tour of topiaries in Clifton.
Right, the ivy, I know several houses that have the ivy growing up on them. And if I do get called for a complaint at a residence, I explain it to them, that there can be a lot of damage being caused by the vines or any type of vegetation growing up on the side of the house. Anything else? Any questions?
So when do you expect to have all your certifications? Because I thought you were hired and you were supposed to have them in a year's time.
Once you're appointed as the property maintenance, or as an official, you have a year from that date.
Oh, so you haven't been appointed as the town ordinance person yet?
He's not been appointed as the official. He is getting his certifications, and he will be appointed once he is certified.
But how long do we keep paying for a non-official?
As long as he's doing his job, and he's doing his job, and he's working to get his certification, he's meeting the requirements of his employment.
So it could be 5 years. could be up to 5 years.
I don't think it's gonna be 5 years. I think
But
it'll be.
all I'm saying, it could be.
To get all the certifications,
Well, I thought you only needed one for rental properties, because I thought.
that's the property maintenance. That's what I'm trying to get within the next couple of weeks.
Because there's a lot of rental properties that need to be inspected before somebody gets in there, much less once they're in there.
Yeah, I believe there's 550 rental units in Clifton Forge. And that's the reason I'm shooting to get my property maintenance certification first.
And once you get that, you will be able to do the rental inspections, in the 3 different zones in the town.
Correct.
I want to thank Brad for taking time off from his vacation to come and update us and answer questions. And if I were his wife, I might not forgive him for missing his birthday. We've heard about the bad, the dilapidated, everything else in Clifton Forge. Now we want to hear about the good, because we have had properties that have been renovated that look wonderful, and we have 2 speakers tonight, one here in person, one by Zoom, to talk about some things they have done and what they are doing to make properties look like new. If you're like me, I go around town and I see a house or a commercial building, and I don't always see it like it is. I see it like it could be. And to me, it's kind of sad that we have so many that are run down. But we also have people who have invested time and money to make properties look better. And I want to introduce the first one tonight. His name is Garland Boo Humphreys. If you know him well, his name is Boo. And he's going to talk to us about some of the commercial renovations he's done in town.
So I had plenty of time. Nobody wants to go home tonight. Thanks for letting me come and talk to you. I can't see you very well. I like to read faces when I speak. So if I go off track, it's because I can't see your faces. Thank you, Sandra, for having me here. When I come to these meetings, I learn a lot. Number one, I get to see people that do love Clifton Forge, and they want to see Clifton Forge thrive. I am one of those people. I'm not at all your meetings because I'm busy, but it does my heart good to see that you guys care about your home and you care about Clifton Forge. And we have a lot here that attracts people. And I won't get into everybody that loves to come to Clifton Forge, but we have something special here, and we need to guard it, we need to protect it, and we need to improve it. So I also learned, last time I was here, I learned that I own some onions, and now I've learned that I own some bad properties. And do y'all remember when my office looked like that? Okay, so some of y'all have been around for a while. The funny thing is, I bought that building and I sold it to a guy from Florida, and then I turned around and bought it back from him in 2007. So I bought it in 2001. Yes, somebody painted all of the windows and I had to scrape all that paint off. But some of the challenges when I'm, just this week I had somebody that loved Clifton Forge. They love the vibe that we have, and I was starting to show them some commercial properties. And you can go to the next thing here. So one of the questions, Sandra, can we be official, unofficial? Dr. McHenry, okay. When people come into town, they are looking for a commercial site, and sometimes I can just see the light in their eyes. They're really excited until I show them the buildings, and they start seeing the work that the buildings need. So yes, there is a market for this. In the last 6 months, I've probably talked to a half a dozen people that want to move their business here or want to start their business here, and we struggle to find them the proper building. There's a disconnect there. Go to the next slide. You may notice that that canopy that was on there was pretty nasty, and this is an absentee owner. It's 429 Ridgeway Street, and I just called her and said, hey, can I pressure wash your canopy? And you can see the big difference in what we have there. That awning looks a whole lot nicer than the one in the previous picture. I also asked her, hey, can I clean your windows? So I have somebody that cleans her windows on a regular basis, and you can see that it makes a big difference. And I said, hey, can I hang some banners in there to give people something to look at? You may not know that this building is for sale or for lease. I do, because when people come to town, this is the building that I show them. And her answer every time is it going to cost me anything? And I always say, no, I just want Ridgeway to look a little nicer. So in '24, I pressure washed it, I put some banners in the window, I cleaned the windows, and then the next slide, I called her this year and said, hey, I would really like to paint the back of your building, because I drive by it every day. She said, how much is it going to cost me? I said, nothing. I'm just going to paint it to make it look nice for you. How many of you walk down the alley? Do we have any alley dwellers? I'm an alley dweller. You may see me, I walk up and down the streets all day. I don't know what you call a person that just is downtown all the time, and everybody speaks to me and I speak to everybody. But on more than one occasion, I have owned one of the ugly buildings. And if you go to the next slide, I realize when you get up here that you can't read your notes for obvious reasons. I have lights and bad eyesight. I should have borrowed Chuck's readers. But Sandra presented me with a couple of questions, and I just thought I would rapid fire those. Almost all of Ridgeway Street, from what I know, is zoned general business, and that's what's going on, is general business is what you see. There's a long list on the town website if you want to see what's included in general business. She asked me if there were any tax credits, and there are. I had never pursued tax credits just for time's sake, but Chuck may be able to answer. It's like 40 cents back on the dollar. It's worth looking into. I can't speak very knowledgeable on that. When you're remodeling a building in town, disabilities is something to think about. My father-in-law is wheelchair bound now, and we push him around town. And when we bring him to something here at the Masonic, we always have to park a couple blocks away because there's not a lot of parking in Clifton Forge. But some of the buildings are difficult to get in and out of with a wheelchair. I'm just speaking from experience. And we have old buildings, they just weren't equipped the way they should have been equipped. But I haven't really run into too many issues with the buildings that I have purchased. She asked me about how people buy buildings, and most of them have their LLC already, or they're getting one in the process of buying the property. I do it differently. It just depends on where I want the expenses to show. I don't always buy under an LLC. Sometimes my wife and I own a building together, and sometimes it's just me, and sometimes it's my LLCs, or one of my LLCs. And the historic district. Maybe I can read my notes on that one. If you're like me, I really like old things. I do. When I go into these old houses and I see these old buildings, I love them. But I don't like dilapidated, worn out buildings. And, when you're in a historic district, I guarantee you that the buildings were updated sometime before they were historic. And I'm going to tell you some really cool things that I found about my building. But I don't really see a problem keeping it historic, but also making it something that's pleasing to the eye. And I think a whole lot of you probably feel the same way about that. I do care about it being maintained, and like I said, I buy buildings that aren't very pretty, and I try to make them pretty. So the next slide is, again, my building. I told you I purchased it in 2001, I sold in 2004, I bought it again in 2007, and I painted it. I painted it the colors that the previous owner had already had approved by the Architectural Review Board, so that's how I came about those colors there. I remodeled the inside. I spent a lot of money on the inside, and that was back in 2007. And if you flip to the next slide, this is where I'm at now. In 2023, one of your questions was, why did I restore my building? It was time. From 2007 to 2023, it had wore down pretty good. I was the owner of one of the ugliest buildings in town again, and it sneaks up on you if if you're not careful. Put a new roof in 2023. Some really cool things that we found, and I had to go back to the architectural review board and say, hey, I found something really cool, I want to change my designs. There's actually copper, and you can see it on the windows above the main windows. There's actually a copper strip there, which I find to be very unique and something I wanted to maintain. And then I also found that old glass that is above my building, and it was painted. I did not know it was glass. As a matter of fact, I would have told you it was wood. Just like many of you thought the top of my building was brick. It wasn't brick, it was just stamped metal, and I replaced that with wood. And so I'm still shopping for a sign. The ARB has approved a sign, and I'm just trying to find the right sign to go below my lights. And Glenn Bryant, I don't think he's here today, but he's the blacksmith in town. He's making me a couple pieces to go on there to adorn the building, and I'm anxiously awaiting to put those on there. I did take a door from a 1932 house in Covington and turn it into a window, basically, and it is starting to decline already. It just wasn't made to hold up to the weather that it sees at my building. We built this door on the other side to match that door as close as we could, and I like the fact that they don't look exactly the same. I like the fact that they look different, but I'm going to be at a point where I'm going to have to replace the door that I replaced back in 2023. So again, maintenance items. I did throw some copper at the bottom of the door, and kind of went with the copper theme after I found that. And I went back each time to the architectural review board and said, hey, I found something cool, I'd like to keep it that way if I can. And of course, if it's old and in decent shape, that's not a problem usually. So if we'll go to the next slide. And she asked me if I had any problems working with the architectural review board, and I didn't. As a rule, or as basically, we got along pretty well when I wanted to make changes. The only thing I don't like to do is I don't like to tell the architectural review board what I'm doing. I like surprises. And if I tell the architectural review board, this is a small town, the word gets out, hey, he's doing this, hey, he's doing that. And people, you may laugh, but the color that's on my building, there were two ladies walking down the street, and I said, hey, I had these paint chips. I said, which color would you do? And they did this. And I said, I'm gonna go with that. And that's how I put it on there. But, so nothing against the architectural review board, it's just, I like to surprise people. I recently surprised Johnny with a new no parking sign behind his building, and I didn't tell him I put it up, because he has like 4 or 5 no parking signs back there, and I ripped them down and put a new one up, and he was tickled to death. The sign, one of the signs that I put 2 of them up, one of them has a picture of him. The other one has a sign that says no parking, we have razors and time, don't test us. And if you know Johnny, the barber, you know that he's a cantankerous old guy, and it fit him very well. So I like surprises. When you tell the ARB board, just keep my secrets if you can. So we're going to go to the next slide. And I was asked about contractors. And let's be brutally honest here. We live in a rural community, and from what I hear from other rural communities, it's the same. There are a few really good contractors in the area, but you can't get them. They don't have time to take care of you. They don't have time to take care of everybody in town. And as I'm about to embark on an even larger project, it's nice if you can hire a contractor in and get the work done. Are y'all losing me, or am I losing you? My ears are, okay, we're good. So I usually find that I'm the one pulling the permission from the county, the building permits, and I usually end up hiring Class C contractors under myself to get the work done. And I have to laugh at these guys because counting the rental on the scissor lift that I was renting, I I had one guy painting and the other one running the scissor lift, so I was paying both of them by the hour to paint the front of the building. They did a great job, by the way. It's just, I snapped that photo just because I found it humorous that it took two of them to paint the top of my building. One of the very good contractors in our area told me one time that he wants to work with people that have a proven track record of paying because he had not been paid on other occasions. And I said, okay, I made it a point to pay him anytime he did work for me, but I still haven't made it to the top of his list because he doesn't have time to return my calls, etc. So let's be honest, contractors in our area are a little tough to come by, and that's why you might see me scraping the paint off of my window or doing some demo work on my buildings. But I am kind of proud of how that little building came out, and I'm about to embark on another. You can change the slide, please. 501 Ridgeway Street is the old Leggett building. Everybody should know where the old Leggett building is. And I was asked, why did I buy that building? And I ask myself that frequently. Why did I buy that building? The story goes that I walk every morning and I walked by a house that was empty. That house was empty for a year. And I said, you know what, I want to buy that house if they'll sell it to me. So I called them and said, hey, I want your house. I want to remodel the house on Palace Boulevard. And we talked about price a couple times, and then they went quiet for like 3 months. But they came in during Fall Festival and they said, hey, buy our house and our building. And I know you know the lady that ran the business there. And so I wasn't intentionally wanting to go out and buy this huge building. I am in love with the building and I want to see it done right. But I own another ugly building. You said this was about the good news, but the good news is I did a small one, and now I have this really large onion that I'm starting to peel back. And you said, are there any red flags when you buy a building? That was one of the questions that Sandra presented to me. And this building has a lot of red flags. It does. I love that the creek runs under it. I am also terrified that the creek runs under it. I want to take Melissa's, I don't think Melissa's here. Melissa's idea is we need to run inner tube under the city and under my building. We just put a lot of lights and things for people to look at under there and have inner tube rides under my building. So,
Good idea.
is that a good idea? I like that idea. I have a lot of crazy ideas though. So, a red flag is, I'm very surprised, but the piers under this building are in great shape. They really are. You know that when you walk in the alley, you can look up under my building. In the summertime, there's a cool breeze that blows right through there. It will cool you off a little bit. If you go back there tonight, you'll probably see some trolls because I did put some trolls under my building. I don't know if those are permitted, Chuck. Is that you laughing? Walk back there tonight and take a look at my trolls. So what am I going to do to the building? It needs a new roof badly, and that's my #1 priority, and I'm real close to starting that process. If you haven't been behind the building, there's 10 million power lines behind my building, and getting up onto the roof is not an easy task. But I've worked on a facade. Don't ask me where that little curly Q came on my C, but you know, when I went to the architectural review board, I am not a draftsman, but I like to draw. I like to color. Let's say I like to color, and they work with me, and sometimes my plans look like they're on a napkin, but I must be a good salesman because they said, hey, that looks okay to us. So I am a little afraid that this building will outrun my income. It is quite a task for me to undertake. But I feel the pressure of the whole town to make something good out of it. I also showed it to somebody on Tuesday that wanted to buy it. So, you know, I'm always in the market to do that in case it comes. But I'm going to be picky. I don't want just anything in that building. Once I get a roof on it and a nice facade on the front, and you can go to the next slide, which is probably in all its glory. looks like something I would have put together if I was given the opportunity to build an awning. I'm going to, you can go to the next slide, let's see what's on there. Oh, I think one of your questions was, you know, what kind of problems did you face? And I like problems. I know that sounds like a weird thing to say, but when there's a problem, I want to figure it out. I want to fix it. And I want to fix this building for Clifton Forge and make it look really nice. I want it to be something special. I don't think it will be as special as Five Sides. The McConnells are here. I love what you're doing to that building, but I want it to be something to kind of feed off what you have going there as well. So that's not the exact quote. If you read up on Thomas Edison, I had to kind of abbreviate it a little bit. It's going to be a lot of hard work, and I'm okay with that. My wife says, hey, we do want to retire sometime. Why do you keep buying things? I think it's because I like the opportunity that it presents. So next slide is, all right, so I'm going to tear down that canopy, and I'm only going to tell you some of my ideas because I don't really want your opinion on all of the things that I'm about to do. But I like the idea of pulling it back off of the street because every delivery truck that comes in there drags that awning, and that one corner of it's really messed up. So these were just some of the inspirations that I had. You're probably wondering what in the world is the line about. If you haven't paid much attention to that building, there are 4 lions on the front of that building that actually hold the chains that hold the awning. And I kind of want to keep the lion theme, and I'm going to forget what this is called. It's got a name, all these little wood pieces put together. I have it written down somewhere, but like I told you, I threw my notes out about 20 minutes ago. So go to the next slide. Guys, you're going to have to, how are you with imagination? Are you strong? Do you have imagination? I have crayons. I literally have crayons, and I never have the color that I want. But I'm going to put 3 arches on the front of that building. They're going to be wood undersides. I put some wood on my building. I saw it go up on 5 sides. I like how it looks. I want to put a little bit of wood at the bottom. I want some lights under the canopy. My color is called Evergreen Fog, and I love that color. I just didn't have a crayon that matched it. So if you have a little bit of imagination, you see it says rough sketch there. I'm going to paint that building green. I'm going to have the lion's heads painted black, and all of the dental work and such also painted black. I want the window trim to be black. We have a guy that runs the ice cream shop now that does commercial doors. We've been talking to him about putting a new commercial door in front of it. I want to do some tile work. I figure it will be black and brown tiles on the entryway there. I don't want to tell you too much more, but that's my napkin sketch. And again, you need a little imagination when you talk to me. My brain can see it, I just can't make your brain see what I need it to see. So once I get the facade up and running, I'm open to suggestions. I literally have had 24 suggestions on what I should put in there, and I have some really cool ideas. I'm going to need managers and things for these ideas because I think it will be cool. And if you just want to be involved in a business, I'm not about taking all the profits. I've told several people if I can get a business started, I'm all about profit sharing, and I want the manager to share in my ideas. But I could see the inside being 4, 6, or even 8 different stores inside of it. Because I have a lot of square footage with this building. I do have a lot of asbestos on the inside I got to cover up. There's just a lot of things that you have to take into consideration. And as long as I live long enough and my wife has patience, I'm going to make this place look nice. But if you want to get into business with me on a few things, let me know. somebody that really has Clifton Forge at their heart. So I told you I didn't pursue this building, but I ended up with it. And, you know, I've been asked to trade it. I've had a few offers on it, but I'm not gonna let it go cheap, and I want it to go to somebody that has the money to take care of it. But in the meantime, I'm gonna fix it up until that happens. And I have no idea if that's the presentation Sandra was hoping for. Did you enjoy it?
I enjoyed it.
Okay. I was given 20 minutes, Chuck, by the way, you were only given 10. And generally, when I speak, if I have 4 pages, I can fill up 30 minutes. I only had a page and a half. So you guys may get to talk to Ms. Atherhall next. So come talk to me if you want to know what my notes really say. We can sit down and talk. I love surprises. I was hoping this building would kind of be a surprise, but here I am publicly telling y'all some of my plans. And I will listen to your advice, even though I told you I didn't want it. I am working with an architect on the awning. I do think I could probably design it and have somebody build it as long as I'm standing there telling them how to build it. But I thought the town of Clifton Forge might feel a little safer walking under my awning if an architect had something to do with it. Architects are not cheap. Here I am still rattling. If we went back to the disability thing, this building has 3-phase power, and that made me think, this building's got an elevator in it somewhere. Why would they have 3-phase power? Most of you have single-phase power in your house, but a commercial building has 3-phase. And I know there's an electrician back there or somebody that can probably teach me what I'm talking about. There's no elevator in this building. I've looked. I can't find an elevator. So I've been trying to think, if I have something downstairs, which is wide open downstairs, I only have stairs to get down there. So I'll be looking for ways to make it handicap accessible, because I think that's important. So, sorry to be all over the place. Thank you for your time. It was appreciated. I do love that you guys love Clifton Forge, and look how many of you came out.
Does anyone have any questions for him?
I have a deer in the headlight look. I have one. Have you thought about, and I'm trying to get all abilities part, but that kind of gets shot down and everything around you. But there's a lot of special needs children here that maybe you could do something for the special needs, and parents would bring their kids to, I don't know, pinball gallery, whatever,
Something like
movie
that.
theater.
Something like that would need to be run by somebody that is trained to deal with special needs kids. I love the idea. I'd want to be there and be involved. I don't have time, but I love the idea. It probably beats shooting range, indoor shooting range. But, you know, I get lots of ideas. Any other questions? I know I'm past my time. All right. Just call me Boo.
All right. I want to thank Boo for coming out tonight and doing that presentation. And he did tell us just about everything he's going to do with that facade. I have a list of, this is the list of questions I had for him to cover, and he covered most of them. The next speaker, she's going to be here by Zoom, Martha Atherhall, and she's going to talk more about residential renovations. And she's done a few in Clifton Forge, and I don't know which one she's done, but I'm eager to find out about some of those renovations. So I believe Gail has got that set up.
Hello, everyone. Hey, Clifton Forge. Caleb, really quickly, just so I understand how all this is going to work. If you would put up that PowerPoint that Gail made with the various properties that I did, and then just basically like every 25 or 30 seconds, just roll to another one. Because I think what you'll find is that throughout the 14 or 15 years that we renovated properties at Clifton Forge, the initial question was, tell us why you decided to purchase this house, and I couldn't pick one. So I Wendy and I were introduced to Clifton Forge and purchased a commercial building on Ridgeway Street, spending a year and a half and developing what turned into Jack Mason's Tavern. At the time that we did that, completely fell in love with Clifton and could see the potential in the area. I think things were beginning to just develop on Main Street. I believe Melissa Hunley had just purchased her building. So there was grumblings of things going on. So after spending the time fixing up Jack Mason's and having it well supported by what we considered our hometown, even though we didn't live here, Clifton Forge we've always considered our hometown. And so we branched out, and I think the initial reason we decided to start, purchasing and sometimes flipping and reselling, but mostly keeping properties is because we were hiring people at the tavern that were coming to town and were unable to find housing, quite frankly. So we began with a house on McCormick Boulevard that was a 2-unit, purchased that and ended up housing our manager and some other employees in that. And then surely, as we continued down the road, I found that I quite enjoyed working on houses and always had a passion for real estate. So I began really doing more projects where I could develop and put in more sweat equity into them, making them more affordable to fix, as well as less expensive on the flip side with the resale. So, initially it was just we wanted to help the community. We wanted to, bottom line, just like anybody in real estate, make a little bit of money, but also really foster off of Main Street beautification of our community. So we didn't always, like Garland said, seek out some of the properties that we ended up with. Quite often we'd be working on one and someone from across the street would come over and knock on the door and see what we were doing and would end up, asking about purchasing their building or house. And so there are 2 streets in town where we ended up going in and thinking we were going to do one house and ended up doing 3. So that's just kind of how it worked, but always have been proud to do those renovations and to feel very blessed to be supported by the community so that we could have the means to give back. Initial state of the properties was varied, as you could see from that very first, which we lovingly call the junkyard across from Highlands Community Bank. Darlene Burcham came to us and said, please, 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 pretty please, would you help us out? And I, of course, made sure that was acquired at a song. And basically what we did was went in and did the gross part. We did the clean out. We did the basic renovation or as far as cleaning off and showing what was possible in that location by getting the fencing down and cleaning all the junk out of it, quite frankly. We got it to a state where we can sell it as a viable business location to the next owner, which is what we did. And then they took the steps to put on the siding, do a little bit of paving, that type. So we don't necessarily always take it to the full completion in that case, but that's what happened there. And we were super proud of that because that's a major gateway property coming into our town, and felt that was a real eyesore that needed to be taken care of. So, but of the 11 properties we worked on while there, that was the third of the quote, commercial, Jack Mason's, and then the brewery building would be the other 2. All the other houses that we did were off Main Street and varied in what they needed and what their structural integrity was as we got them. One of the things that she asked in the questions for me to explain is what we initially look for when considering purchasing a property. I think first and foremost, with situations in that town being a little different, I guess, but outside of structural, I look for clear title first, because sometimes tracking down and getting clear title on a house. So if there's any question, if anyone's looking at buying any of these older homes in Clifton, I would recommend title insurance if that's not crystal clear and provable. At the time we began getting into these fix-ups, quite frankly, the cost major lure for me because low on the intake of going in. Granted, they cost quite a bit to fix, but going in without a lot of cash up front. Some of them we paid for, some of them we opted to use equity in our other properties and open the line of credit. So we didn't have to pull out of our savings to do a lot of the work. And I will sidebar right there when I reach into that angle and say, we are very blessed in Clifton and the Allegheny Highlands to have an excellent local bank, which is Highlands Community Bank. And I can't tell you what an asset they were in helping us figure out how to navigate some of the financial hurdles and in getting some of these houses in a creative way and in a way that was cost effective. So that is one of the things I would highly encourage any potential investor to do is really develop a good relationship with your banker. The next thing would be have a team that especially if you're planning on doing more than one property, have your team and make that, again, I know that everybody looks at buying and selling as realtors are an extra cost and all that stuff, but they are worth their weight in gold and will definitely be an asset on that team. As Garland alluded to, contractors, big hurdle around there. So if you get a contractor working on your place that you like, again, like Garland said, pay them well and pay them every time they work for you, and you will find that you'll work your way up that ladder just like he did. So when doing renovations, I think a big thing is knowing what your limitations are. As I said, I'm mechanical and I like to learn things, so I self-taught. Though I'm admittedly still terrible at drywalling, I'll still try. But the things that you can do, exactly that, cosmetic stuff, painting, drywalling, whatever, keep struggling at that. But the things that are permitted, like plumbing, like electrical, structural stuff like that, I highly recommend using and finding yourself that one company or group that you're going to use to do the work for you. Not only will they're held professionally to those standards, but when there's issues, they will come running quickly. So financial aspects she wanted, or actually let me go back. She gave me the same questions as she did Garland about red flags. I think commercial and housing are hand in hand in that. Structure, he talked about his roof. One of my tops is roof. Water is one of the biggest, damaging factors to any real estate. So you want to make sure existing water damage, structural condition, under the house. He mentioned piling under his building. Pilings under homes is the same way. Bugs, termites, things like that. So again, my suggestion would be, unless you are one, spend a few $100s and hire an inspector to give you a good look at what you've got there, and then you can assess your costs as far as what you're paying and what you can get out. And that realtor on your team will help you with comps and understanding where your proceeds could be if it's something that you're deciding to flip. Right there, that's another question she asked was, what profit margin? I have to tell you, when we first started in the market in Clifton Forge, everybody wishes for 20, 25% return on their money. Quite frankly, sometimes that happened, sometimes it didn't. It just depended on the situation. But for me, I can say any property we owned, rented quickly, stayed rented, and when we sold it, sold quickly, and we did always turn a profit. So that's something to be said for that. She asked on this list, how, to your knowledge, how do most people go about owning and renovating a property? Do they operate through an LLC or another entity? Again, like Garland said, he does it various ways. I myself, whenever I purchased a property, bought it through an LLC because I always wanted to protect my personal assets from anything that could potentially happen through rental or repair, anything that could potentially happen through that property, to be able to access and cause me financial harm personally with my own personal assets. So I'm a big proponent for LLCs, and they're easy and bang for the buck, worth their money and effort. So what was the worst obstacle I've encountered while renovating? I would say obstacles, one of the last properties we worked on was on a steep hill. You saw that little blue cottage that we redid up on Bath Street. And, an act of God, and then hill and nature and erosion and things like that, there's only so much you can do. And so I think those obstacles with a house that's built 100 years before you own it is getting around and fixing what's underneath to continue to hold up under those conditions of the hills and things like that we have in Clifton Forge. And quite frankly, the last question she asked was what was one of the most pleasant surprises that we had. And I think that I kind of hit on that already. Everything that we had, whether rented to employees or other, rented quickly, stayed rented, and then ultimately sold quickly. If you're someone that's looking to get into rentals, I can give you one piece of advice, and that's don't be shy on doing inspections. Once your tenant's in there, make sure you set up a window where you can get in and keep an eye on your property on a regular basis, because obviously you and I both know they will not care for it as well as you would or would like them to. So I think that's really my take on what we did and I guess how we did it. I want to say, if I still lived in Clifton Forge or in that area, you'd find me still investing in real estate there today, because I feel like he mentioned as well, bang for the buck. What we have and what y'all have in Clifton is not around a lot anymore, and that is, a community base, a good volunteer base. You've got people that are coming in and investing in your downtown. The outdoor aspect, we've still got location in the state, the theater, all that stuff. Then you get into the basics of hiring business people with fiber internet and all the things that have been, gone on and on throughout the past years. And those are all such assets, and then you look at it and there's still such a low entrance to market as far as costs. So first-time buyers, people that want to buy additional properties, people that are downsizing in retirement, people that want to build an investment portfolio, real estate, even though it's higher interest rates and things like that right now, still is an asset that will, in most markets develop 3 to 5% as far as value increase every year. And so even in towns like Clifton that have those surrounding buildings that aren't in the best shape, they are all viable assets. And quite frankly, like I said, there's Clifton, that wants to progress, but also Clifton has amazing historical and, again, I hate to keep saying like Garland, but very cool buildings. And they have a lot of interesting architectural features to them that I would hate to see continue to have to be knocked down because of neglect. So if there's ever, anyone that could just give you guys the rah-rah and say, please, please, put your rose-colored glasses on and roll up your sleeves and get a little sweat equity out there and make that town continue to prosper and improve with regards to real estate, because I think what's sitting there right in front of you guys is still an amazing asset that's yet to be tapped. So I loved the quote earlier, look at it, but look at it like it could be, and that was always my viewpoint, though my glasses were a little rosier than others, it never did anything but bring a positive result. So I hope that you guys out there will continue to, volunteer as far as volunteering to put your time and your effort and your finances and your community into continuing to make these buildings and these homes back to what they could be and to what can continue to stand up and support this community for another 100 years. So I think I've pretty much said everything I should. I don't know if, Sandra, you want me to field any questions or what have you. I can't see y'all, but I'm willing to talk to you if you want me to.
Does anyone have any questions for Martha?
Hi, Suzanne. I see you over there. Okay. Well, it's been a pleasure. I miss being in Clifton Forge every day, and I'm there often and visiting. And
Hold on, we have a question.
there we go. Hey.
a statement. This has been nicely, town council member. What you guys did to our town and where you took it to another level, we appreciate it. And it has been unnoticed. I hope that people take the initiative and go further with your advice and drive this, because we have a beautiful town and everything that you guys did just made it better.
Well, thank you very much, and there wasn't a day that went by that we didn't love every minute of it, and like I said, I don't live in Clifton anymore. I never really lived there, but I don't live near the Allegheny Highlands anymore. But my love for that town and everything around it, I will always consider it my hometown. So if ever, I'm there again, I will most definitely continue to invest and to volunteer and to do anything I can to help Clifton Forge prosper and move into the future as a viable, awesome small town.
Thank you, Martha. I can't even imagine doing one property to flip it, let alone 11. And yeah, we bought a 100-year-old house, and well, my husband is still working on it. I'm trying to get him to speed up a little bit, but he's slow. We do have some community gatherings coming up, and you see on the slide here in August, Karen Weber and Chuck talked a little bit about Karen. She's with that DEQ BAD organization, and she's going to talk more about that. And then in September, we're going to do something a little bit different. Last year, I don't know if some of you all took part in the history walk that Mac Beard did. We did it in July, but he's going to come back again and do another walk with us and see parts of downtown that you may not have seen before, including the real underground, not the one below us, but the one over across the street. So that's what we're going to do in September. Another announcement is that there's been a group of young folk. We're just going to call them young folk. I don't know what the age range is, but let's say 35 and under. And they've been getting together from time to time to talk about things to do in Clifton Forge and how to make Clifton Forge better, how to attract some younger folks here. And if you have any questions about that or know someone who would like to meet up with this group, you can talk to Autumn Morgan. And for those of you that are watching streaming or online, you can just find Autumn at Four Moons. So you can ask her about that group. Please invite your friends to come join us for our community gatherings. This is the place where we can talk to one another, discuss ideas, and make things happen in Clifton Forge to make it a better place to live, work, play, and do business. So thank you for coming out tonight, and I'll just ask Gail if there's anything I've missed. No, we're good. Thank you.